The streets of Zalaris shimmered under the twin suns, their golden light bouncing off the polished towers and the bustling market squares. Though the city had survived the Great War, the scars were still visible. Burned-out vehicles had been replaced with sleek transports, and craters in the streets had been filled, yet the memory of destruction lingered. Amid the rebuilding, the people moved with a cautious optimism, aware of what they had endured and determined never to let it happen again. Princess Lyra walked among them, keeping to the shadows, her hood pulled low over her face. She wanted to see her city as it truly was, without the barriers that royalty always seemed to put between themselves and the world. Lyra had been just a girl when the war began, barely old enough to understand the danger her planet faced. She remembered the fear that gripped Zalaris when the first invaders appeared in the skies, their ships darkening the horizon like a swarm of predatory birds. She had been safe then, hidden away in the palace, but she had seen the panic in her people's eyes and felt powerless to help. Then came the human hero. The stories had reached her even in the palace, a young human, brave and clever, leading Zalaris' resistance with a combination of strategy, courage, and ingenuity. He had turned the tide of the war, saving countless lives, including hers, though she hadn't realized it at the time. Now, years later, she walked among the people she had once observed only from a distance. Her heart was heavy with memories of the childhood she had lost to fear and war, but it also carried a spark of hope. She had come to see not just the physical recovery of her city, but the spirit of its citizens. They smiled, they laughed, and they worked hard to rebuild, refusing to be broken by their past. And yet something drew her forward, a curiosity she could not ignore. There were rumors of the human hero's arrival in Zalaris, visiting the city to inspect its recovery and offer guidance. Lyra's heart skipped at the thought. Could he really be here? Could the boy who had once been her friend, who had laughed with her under alien skies years ago, be the same man who had saved her world? She remembered him clearly, though her memory was blurred by time. He had been different from the other children, curious about everything, clever and kind. They had shared games, secrets, and dreams of adventure that felt far larger than their small lives. And then one day he had gone, leaving behind only memories and a promise to meet again someday, though neither had known when. As she wandered the market, her eyes caught a crowd gathered near the council building. People whispered excitedly, pointing skyward and gesturing with hands that trembled in awe. Lyra pushed closer, careful not to draw attention. There he was. A man stood tall, human among aliens, commanding attention without raising his voice. His posture was confident, but his eyes carried a quiet intensity that drew people in. Lyra felt a jolt of recognition in her chest, a mix of disbelief and hope. She had never seen him like this before, older, taller, battle-hardened, but there was something undeniably familiar in the way he moved, the way he smiled briefly at the people who approached him. Lyra's heart raced. She had to know. She had to be sure. Her mind raced through memories, searching for details that would confirm her suspicion. The way he tilted his head when listening, the subtle gestures he made when explaining a plan, the faint laugh that reminded her of days spent playing hide-and-seek in the palace gardens, each detail seemed to whisper the truth. But could it really be him? After so many years, after so much had changed, could the boy she had loved as a friend still exist in this human hero before her eyes? The crowd began to thin as people moved on, leaving Lyra with only the man she sought. She lingered, pretending to browse the nearby stalls, but her attention never wavered. She watched him interact with the counselors, answering questions with ease, offering suggestions that impressed even the most skeptical officials. He spoke of strategy, of rebuilding defenses, of preparing Zalaris for threats that might come in the future. His words were calm but firm, full of the kind of intelligence that only someone who had faced countless challenges could possess. Lyra could see why her people admired him. He was not just a hero because he had won battles. He was a hero because he understood people, because he inspired trust and courage in others. And yet, beyond all of that, beyond the title and the legend, she saw the boy she had known. She remembered how he had held her hand when she was scared, how he had shared his food with her during long days in the palace courtyard, how he had promised that no matter what happened, they would always find each other again. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden commotion. One of the counselors raised a hand, signaling that they had a question for the hero. Lyra watched as he nodded politely and approached, his steps measured and deliberate. As he spoke, he gestured with his hands in a way that made her chest tighten. She knew that gesture. It was the one he had used when he explained games or plans to her when they were children. A shiver ran down her spine. Could it be that simple thing that finally made her certain? Could one small habit survive all the years, all the battles, all the distance, and still reveal the truth? The counselor stepped back, satisfied, and the hero turned slightly. In that brief movement, Lyra glimpsed something, a flash of a smile, a familiar curve of his lips, and she could no longer doubt. Her breath caught, her heart leapt, and tears threatened to rise in her eyes. It was him. It had to be him. The boy she had cherished as a friend, the human who had saved her world, stood before her. She wanted to run to him, to call out his name, to bridge the years of separation with a single step. But caution held her back. She was still the princess, and he was a hero. Their reunion could not be reckless. She needed to approach carefully, to make sure that he remembered her as she remembered him, that he would recognize the bond they had once shared. As the crowd dispersed further, Lyra followed at a distance, moving through the streets with careful steps. She observed him from afar, noting how he interacted with the citizens, how he listened to their concerns, and how he offered advice without arrogance. The more she watched, the more she admired him, not just as a hero of her planet, but as the boy she had loved as a friend. She could see the kindness in his eyes, the quiet strength that had always been a part of him, and the courage that had carried him across galaxies to save her people. Her thoughts were interrupted again, this time by a distant shout. She turned her head and saw a group of workers struggling with a damaged transport. Without hesitation, the hero moved toward them, assessing the situation with sharp eyes. Lyra watched in awe as he coordinated the repairs, giving precise instructions and offering encouragement. The workers followed him without question, inspired by his confidence and calm authority. In that moment, Lyra realized that heroism was not just about grand battles and legendary victories. It was about presence, about making a difference wherever one could, about inspiring hope and courage in others. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the city. Lyra knew she had limited time. She had to speak to him before he left Zalaris. Gathering her courage, she approached cautiously, her hood still covering her face. She walked alongside him for a few steps before he turned slightly, sensing her presence. Their eyes met for the briefest moment, and she felt an electric connection, as if the years melted away and only the two of them existed. But before she could speak, a counselor called out, requesting his attention. He glanced at her once more, a faint smile tugging at his lips, then moved forward. Lyra's heart ached with anticipation, but she did not falter. She would wait, she would find a moment, and she would make him remember. The hero who had saved her world had returned, and the girl who had once been his closest friend would find a way to reconnect, to bridge the years of distance, and to uncover the truth that destiny had hidden in plain sight. As the city lights flickered on, reflecting in the canals and streets of Zalaris, Lyra walked behind him, determined. The past and the present were about to collide, and when they did, nothing would be the same. She did not yet know how he would respond, but she knew one thing for certain. The bond they had shared as children and the heroism he had shown as an adult would change both of their lives forever. The following day, the city of Zalaris buzzed with more activity than usual. The streets, usually full of merchants and children at play, were alive with the anticipation of the hero's presence. Princess Lyra moved carefully through the crowd, keeping a distance but never losing sight of him. She could feel her pulse quicken every time he glanced around, every time his sharp eyes scanned the city. She wanted to approach him, to call out his name and step into the moment they had both been waiting for, yet caution held her back. The world still needed order, and she could not risk disrupting the delicate balance that had been restored after the war. Ethan moved through the city with purpose. He was observing, learning, and guiding, but he was also quietly absorbing everything around him. Even as a hero celebrated across galaxies, he remained humble, noticing details others overlooked. The children playing in the square, the merchants haggling over prices, the way the sunlight bounced off the rooftops. All of it reminded him of Earth, of the simple moments he had missed while fighting across distant stars. But above all, there was something else tugging at his memory, something faint yet persistent, like the echo of a voice long forgotten. Lyra watched as he stopped near a small fountain, speaking softly to a group of engineers repairing a transport system. The way he gestured, patient and precise, struck a chord deep within her. She had seen this before years ago in a place far from battles and heroism. Her heart leapt with the recognition, and she whispered to herself, "It's him." It really is him. She moved closer, weaving through the market stalls, keeping her hood low, feeling the strange mix of excitement and fear. Ethan's attention shifted suddenly. He turned his head slightly as if sensing someone behind him. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Lyra froze, time seemed to slow. In that instant, a memory flashed in Ethan's mind. A small girl with bright eyes and laughter that could fill a room, a boy he had once promised to protect no matter what. He blinked, trying to place the feeling, but the years had changed them both. Could it be her? Could this be the girl he had once called his closest friend? The thought made his chest tighten. Before he could investigate further, a group of council members approached, their faces serious. "Hero Ethan," one of them said, "we need your insight regarding the northern perimeter. Intelligence reports suggest minor disturbances near the border. Nothing confirmed yet, but your expertise could help prevent a major threat." Lyra stayed close, pretending to browse goods at a nearby stall. She noticed how his mind worked, quickly, efficiently, but always considering the people involved. He was not just giving orders, he was teaching, encouraging, and guiding. Even the counselors, skeptical at first, seemed to soften under his influence. As the discussion ended, Ethan prepared to move toward the northern district. Lyra hesitated. This was her chance to approach him without being noticed by the crowd. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, careful not to rush or reveal too much. "Excuse me," she said softly, barely above a whisper. Ethan turned. Their eyes locked again, and the strange feeling between them intensified. Recognition flickered in his gaze, though he could not yet place it completely. There was something familiar about the way she held herself, the tilt of her head, the cautious curiosity in her expression. He felt drawn to her, a memory buried deep beneath the years of war and responsibility. "Yes," he asked gently. Lyra's heart raced. I need to ask you something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Do you remember a girl, a friend, someone you knew a long time ago on another world?" I think so," he said cautiously. "What about her?" "It's me," she said simply. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world around them seemed to blur, the bustling streets fading into the background. They were no longer princess and hero, no longer leader and savior. They were the children who had shared laughter, secrets, and dreams. Ethan took a cautious step forward, reaching out as if to make sure she was real. She mirrored him, their hands meeting in a touch that carried the weight of years apart. I can't believe it," Ethan said, shaking his head in wonder. "After all this time, you're here. I need to know if you're really the one who saved our world." I'm just glad I was able to help." Ethan told stories of his journeys across the stars, of the battles he had fought, and the planets he had helped save. Lyra shared the struggles of Zalaris, recovery, the victories and setbacks, the small moments of hope that kept her people moving forward. With every word, their bond deepened, blending the past and present into a connection stronger than either had imagined. As they spoke, an urgent message arrived from the council. A scout reported unusual activity near the northern perimeter. Strange ships had been spotted, moving in formation. The threat was minor, but it could escalate if not addressed quickly. Lyra looked at Ethan, knowing that this was the moment to see him in action, to witness the hero who had saved her world. Ethan's expression shifted, the playful warmth replaced by focused determination. "We need to assess the situation," he said, already analyzing the reports in his mind. "We can't ignore this. If there's even a chance of trouble, we need to be ready." "I'll help," she said firmly. "I know this city, the people, the defenses. Together we can handle this." She was not just a princess observing from afar. She was a partner, an ally, and a friend. And beside her was the human who had once been her childhood companion, the hero who had saved her world and now stood ready to protect it once more. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the city as they approached the outskirts. Ethan's mind raced with strategy, considering the terrain, the resources available, and the potential threat. Lyra provided insight into the city's defenses, offering suggestions and highlighting weaknesses. Together, they worked seamlessly, the bond of their shared past enhancing their coordination. By the time night fell, the perimeter had been secured, and the city's citizens slept more soundly knowing that their hero and their princess were working together to keep them safe. Lyra looked at Ethan, a quiet smile on her lips. "It feels like old times," she said softly. Ethan returned the smile, the memory of their childhood adventures mingling with the reality of their current mission. "In a way it is," he said. "We've just grown up a little since then." They were two friends reunited, ready to face whatever the universe might throw at them, stronger together than they could ever be apart. And as the stars began to shine above Zalaris, Lyra knew that this was only the beginning. Their past had brought them together, but their present and future would define the legend of the human hero and the princess who discovered that her childhood best friend had always been watching over her world. The morning air in Zalaris carried a quiet tension. Though the city had survived the war and was recovering, whispers of unrest began to circulate. The scouts' reports were troubling. Unusual movements near the northern border hinted that remnants of the invading forces might still linger, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. Princess Lyra and Ethan walked through the city, discussing these reports with the council. Even with the years of peace, neither trusted that the danger had truly vanished. Lyra's heart pounded as they entered the council chambers. The room was grand, with tall, glass-like walls that reflected the rising sun, but the mood inside was anything but bright. Council members sat in clusters, some whispering, some glaring at Ethan with suspicion. Human heroes were admired, yes, but they were also outsiders. His presence, however heroic, stirred old fears among those who had once fought to preserve Zalaris' independence. Ethan noticed the subtle tension immediately. He had faced prejudice before, though rarely in the form of whispers in the council. He smiled politely and addressed the assembly. "I am here to help, not to take control. My interest is only in the safety of Zalaris and its people. How can we trust that your presence will not bring more danger than protection? I trust him completely, and you should too." Her eyes swept across the room, meeting the skeptical gazes of each counselor. "The man standing beside me is not just a hero, he is someone who has proven his loyalty and skill. Zalaris has no reason to fear him." He knew she had the authority to sway them, but he also understood the delicate politics at play. "I do not seek trust blindly," he said. "I will demonstrate it through action. Let me work with your defenses, with your people, and you will see that my only goal is the protection of Zalaris." She watched him carefully, noting the way he listened to objections without irritation, the way he reassured those unsure of his motives, and the way he included their ideas rather than imposing his own. It reminded her of the boy he had been long ago, clever, patient, and always considerate of others. The years had shaped him, yes, but his core remained the same. After hours of debate, the council agreed to allow Ethan to review the city's defenses and provide guidance. As they exited the chambers, Lyra and Ethan moved together toward the northern district. The streets were busy with citizens preparing for the day. Children played under the watchful eyes of their parents, merchants shouted prices, and engineers adjusted the new transport lines. Yet beneath the ordinary bustle, there was a sense of readiness, a city quietly preparing for any threat that might arise. They reached the northern perimeter, a network of towers and walls overlooking the plains that bordered Zalaris. Scouts reported that small groups of enemy forces had been spotted near the tree line, testing patrols and seeking weak points. Ethan knelt to examine the terrain, tracing routes with his fingers on the maps he carried. "They're probing," he said. "They want to see how fast we respond, where our weak points are. If they sense hesitation, they'll exploit it. We need to adjust patrol routes, reinforce key positions, and improve communication between towers." Lyra pointed out hidden paths, secret routes, and vantage points only a local could know. Ethan suggested adjustments in patrol rotations, surprise checkpoints, and coordination signals between towers. The two worked seamlessly, their synergy growing stronger with every suggestion and counter-suggestion. As they discussed, a scout ran up, breathless and anxious. "Princess! Hero!" Multiple ships approaching from the northeast. They are small but fast. It looks like a coordinated attack. Lyra's heart raced, not from fear, but from the realization that the boy she had once known, the hero who had saved her world, was now preparing to defend it again. His presence was inspiring. Even the soldiers who were doubtful of the human hero's abilities now worked with precision, motivated by his calm confidence. The first wave of enemy ships arrived just as the sun rose higher in the sky. Swift and precise, they moved toward the perimeter, firing short-range weapons and testing the city's response. Ethan observed carefully, noting their patterns, their timing, and the way they coordinated. "They're good," he said quietly, "but not unbeatable. Use the towers to create choke points. Draw them in, then strike from multiple angles. Timing is everything." Turrets opened fire, shields reinforced weak points, and soldiers moved with precision. The battle raged, but it was clear that the attackers were being outmaneuvered. Ethan's strategies, combined with Lyra's intimate knowledge of the city, turned what could have been a chaotic skirmish into a controlled engagement. Citizens watched from safe distances, awe on their faces as they witnessed human ingenuity and alien collaboration at work. During the fight, Lyra and Ethan moved together along the walls, giving orders and adjusting positions. There was a moment when one of the enemy ships breached a section of the perimeter, and Lyra feared it might be disastrous. But Ethan reacted instantly, coordinating a counterattack that pushed the attackers back. She felt a surge of admiration, realizing that the boy she had known had always been courageous and clever, but the man he had become was extraordinary. By the end of the skirmish, the attackers had retreated, leaving Zalaris' northern perimeter secure. The city's defenders cheered, their morale boosted by the victory. Lyra and Ethan stood together, surveying the aftermath. Soldiers and engineers were already repairing damage, and citizens began to emerge from their homes, grateful for the protection they had received. Lyra turned to Ethan, a mixture of relief and excitement in her eyes. "You were amazing," she said. I knew you were skilled, but seeing it like this, it's incredible." For a moment they stood side by side, the bond of childhood friendship strengthened by shared danger and triumph. The city around them, scarred yet resilient, reflected the same qualities that Ethan had always admired in its people. As the sun reached its peak, Lyra and Ethan walked back toward the council chambers. They knew this victory was only a small step in ensuring Zalaris' safety. The war may have ended years ago, but threats remained, and the city's recovery was fragile. Yet for the first time in years, Lyra felt a deep sense of hope. With Ethan by her side, with her people united and ready, she believed that no challenge was too great. Inside the chambers, the council members greeted them with a mix of relief and respect. "The northern perimeter is secure," Lyra reported. "The human hero's strategies combined with our defenses worked perfectly. There is no immediate threat." "Perhaps we underestimated more than just his strategies," he admitted. "Perhaps we underestimated the strength of collaboration and the value of human ingenuity." Later that evening, as the city settled under the twin moons of Zalaris, Lyra and Ethan walked through the quiet streets. They reflected on the day's events, sharing stories and laughter. The bond of their childhood had been renewed and strengthened, forged now in both memory and shared experience. Lyra realized that she no longer saw Ethan only as the hero who saved her world. She saw him as her friend, her confidant, and a partner she could trust implicitly. And Ethan, looking at her, recognized the courage, intelligence, and leadership he had always admired in the little girl he once knew. The city around them might still face challenges, but together they could meet anything. As the stars shone above, Lyra and Ethan knew that this was just the beginning of a journey, one that would test their courage, ingenuity, and loyalty. But whatever the future held, they were ready to face it side by side, as friends, as allies, and as champions of a world that had survived against all odds. The morning sky of Zalaris was tinged with red as twin suns rose above the horizon. Lyra stood atop the northern wall, her gaze sweeping the distant plains. Smoke still lingered in the air from the previous day's skirmish, but there was little time to rest. Intelligence reports had confirmed the worst. The remnants of the alien invaders were gathering for a larger strike. This time, the attack would be coordinated and brutal. The city that had survived war once would have to defend itself again. Ethan joined her, adjusting his gear and scanning the horizon with sharp, practiced eyes. "They're stronger this time," he said, his voice calm but firm. "They've learned from their mistakes. We'll need every advantage we can get. I've already devised a few strategies, but I need you with me. Your knowledge of Zalaris could save countless lives." Barricades were reinforced, communication lines checked, and defensive positions strengthened. Lyra moved among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and reassurance. She saw the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. Zalaris would not fall again. Ethan, meanwhile, coordinated with the city's commanders, adjusting plans on the fly as new information arrived. He assessed the alien ships, their speed, formation, and likely attack patterns. Every move was calculated, every decision precise. Yet he never lost sight of the people he was protecting. His strategies were not just about winning, they were about minimizing harm, saving lives, and inspiring confidence. By midday, the first wave of the attack began. Alien ships appeared on the horizon, dark shapes cutting through the sky. Their weapons glowed as they fired sporadically, testing Zalaris' defenses. Soldiers manned the towers, turrets rotated, and shields shimmered with energy. Lyra stayed close to Ethan, relaying orders and coordinating efforts between towers, patrols, and the city center. The first clash was chaotic but controlled. Ethan's planning allowed Zalaris, forces to anticipate the enemy's moves, creating traps and bottlenecks that slowed the attackers. Soldiers moved with precision, inspired by the calm authority of the human hero and the steady guidance of their princess. Lyra marveled at how seamlessly Ethan adapted, adjusting strategies in real time and turning every challenge into an opportunity. A sudden alarm sounded. One of the towers reported a breach. An alien squad had managed to land on the outer walls. Lyra's heart skipped, but Ethan's reaction was instant. "Reinforce the perimeter, cut them off before they reach the inner city." His voice was calm, commanding, and efficient. The soldiers moved as he directed, surrounding the intruders with coordinated precision. Lyra joined them, guiding reinforcements and using her knowledge of hidden passages to outmaneuver the invaders. Together, she and Ethan moved like a single entity, her understanding of the city's layout blending perfectly with his tactical genius. Within minutes, the squad was neutralized, the breach contained, and the city remained secure. The battle continued for hours. Alien ships bombarded the perimeter, sending waves of smaller attack units to test the defenses. Zalaris, forces held their ground, repelling attackers while minimizing casualties. Ethan directed every maneuver, shifting soldiers, opening new firing lines, and predicting the enemy's next moves. Lyra worked alongside him, her voice calm but authoritative as she relayed instructions, motivated the weary, and solved problems as they arose. At one point, a massive alien ship broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the city center. Panic surged among the soldiers, but Ethan acted quickly. "We'll need to lure it into the trap," he shouted. He signaled to Lyra, who immediately understood. They coordinated the city's defenses, drawing the ship toward a narrow canyon where energy nets and turrets could corner it. The maneuver was risky. If it failed, the city could be destroyed. Lyra's stomach tightened, but she trusted Ethan completely. Step by step, they guided the attackers into the trap. Energy nets shimmered, turrets fired, and the massive ship was immobilized. With coordinated strikes, they destroyed the vessel before it could reach the city center. Citizens cheered, and even the soldiers who had doubted Ethan's human tactics found themselves amazed by his ingenuity. As the battle wore on, the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the plains. Despite fatigue, neither Lyra nor Ethan faltered. They moved together, side by side, directing forces, repairing defenses, and inspiring those around them. The alien attackers, frustrated by the unexpected resistance, began to withdraw, their morale broken by the skill, courage, and determination of Zalaris' defenders. By nightfall, the city was safe. Zalaris had endured its largest attack since the war, and the victory was complete. Soldiers, engineers, and citizens celebrated, their exhaustion mingling with relief and pride. Lyra and Ethan stood on a tower overlooking the city, watching the glow of lights and the quiet hum of life. "You did it," Lyra said softly, her voice filled with awe. "You saved them again." "We did it, the people, the soldiers, and you all played a part. I only helped coordinate. The real strength comes from Zalaris itself. I've grown, but the boy you knew, the friend I trusted, he's still here too. That's what helps me make the right choices, and having you beside me, it makes everything clearer." And through it all, humanity's ingenuity had shown, reminding everyone present why humans were admired across galaxies. The city's leaders approached them, voices filled with gratitude and respect. "Princess Lyra, Hero Ethan," one counselor said, bowing slightly. "Your actions today have not only saved our city, but inspired our people. Zalaris owes you more than words can express." The people of Zalaris had seen human ingenuity and compassion at work, and the legend of the hero and the princess would be remembered for generations. As the celebrations continued, Lyra and Ethan found a quiet moment atop the tower. The stars of Zalaris shone brilliantly, reflecting the twin suns that had set hours before. The city lay peaceful below, a testament to resilience and unity. "I never imagined this day," Lyra said softly. "To fight together to protect our world, it feels like a dream. Zalaris has endured before, and it will endure again, with courage, intelligence, and heart." And above it all, two figures, one human, one alien, stood united, their bond unbroken, their courage unwavering, and their legend growing with every heartbeat of the city they had saved. The city of Zalaris was quiet in the early morning hours, the twin suns casting a soft glow over the repaired buildings and bustling streets. The victory against the alien invaders had brought a sense of peace, but there was a new energy in the air, a feeling that this city, scarred yet resilient, was ready to begin a new chapter. Princess Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the central plaza, her eyes tracing the paths where citizens were already at work. She felt a sense of pride and hope she had never experienced before. The city was alive, vibrant, and full of promise. Ethan joined her, carrying a small bundle of reports and maps from the council. He glanced at the city below, then at Lyra. "It's remarkable," he said quietly. "You and your people have rebuilt so much. I've never seen anything like it. And you've given us more than just safety. You've shown us what courage, cleverness, and determination can do. The real heroes are the citizens themselves, the soldiers, the engineers, everyone who refused to give up." There would always be challenges, new threats, and uncertainties. Yet, for the first time, Lyra felt that she was not facing them alone. Later, the council convened in the main chamber to discuss the future. The mood was celebratory but practical. Zalaris needed guidance to continue its recovery and ensure lasting peace. Ethan and Lyra presented their ideas together, blending human strategy with alien knowledge. "The recent attack demonstrated that our city can defend itself," Ethan began. "But to ensure long-term security, we need coordinated training programs, improved communication networks, and a system that allows rapid response to any threat. We should also strengthen diplomatic ties with neighboring systems to prevent future conflicts." Their previous skepticism toward Ethan had transformed into respect. They saw the effectiveness of combining human ingenuity with local knowledge and leadership. By the end of the meeting, plans were in motion to implement these improvements, and the city felt a renewed sense of purpose. As the days passed, Lyra and Ethan worked closely together, overseeing the recovery efforts and strengthening bonds between humans and aliens. Soldiers trained under combined strategies, engineers collaborated on advanced systems, and citizens engaged in rebuilding neighborhoods. The city grew stronger, not just in walls and technology, but in spirit and unity. Amid this work, Lyra found moments to reconnect with Ethan on a personal level. They walked through markets, shared meals with citizens, and visited the old palace gardens where they had once played as children. Each step reminded them of the bond they had shared years ago, a bond now matured into mutual respect, friendship, and trust. One evening, as the twin suns set and the city lights began to glow, Lyra and Ethan stood in the palace gardens. The flowers, newly planted, swayed gently in the evening breeze. Lyra looked at Ethan, her eyes reflecting the soft light. "I never imagined we'd return here like this," she said. "After all the battles, all the time apart, and yet here we are. Together." Reports came from the city outskirts. New communities were thriving, trade routes reopening, and young cadets excelling in their training programs. The city was moving forward, stronger than ever. Lyra felt a swell of pride. They had not only defended Xylaris, but also laid the foundations for a new era of growth and prosperity. As night fell, they climbed to a high terrace overlooking the city. The lights shimmered like stars brought down to earth, reflecting in the canals and across the plazas. Citizens walked safely in the streets, laughter and conversation filling the air. Xylaris was alive, vibrant, and free from fear. Lyra turned to Ethan. "You know," she said softly, "it's strange to think that the boy I knew as a friend is now the hero who helped save my world. And yet it feels right, like nothing has really changed, even though everything has." Lyra and Ethan introduced education programs, military training combined with strategic thinking, and initiatives that encouraged collaboration between humans and Zalari citizens. Children learned about both human history and Zalaris culture, forging a generation prepared to face challenges with ingenuity and courage. During one inspection of a training facility, Ethan watched a group of young cadets practice coordinated drills. Their movements were precise, their teamwork evident. Lyra stood beside him, proud and inspired. "They remind me of us when we were young," she said, smiling. "Only much braver and wiser already. And they have the advantage of seeing the outcome of the lessons we learned. They have hope, guidance, and the knowledge that even impossible challenges can be overcome." Citizens looked to them not only as leaders, but as exemplars of what could be achieved when friendship, trust, and intelligence came together. One day, Lyra took Ethan to a quiet part of the city, a place where the ruins of the old palace met the rebuilt gardens. "I wanted to show you something," she said, guiding him through the paths lined with flowers and small fountains. "This is where we used to play long ago. Do you remember?" Lyra realized that their childhood bond had not only survived, but had been strengthened by time, distance, and shared experiences. It was a friendship rooted in trust, courage, and loyalty, qualities that had shaped both their lives and the fate of Zalaris. As night fell, the twin moons rose above the city. Lyra and Ethan stood on a high terrace, looking out over the lights and the peaceful streets. The city had endured, had grown stronger, and had embraced a future filled with hope. Lyra turned to Ethan, her voice filled with warmth. "We've done more than defend a city," she said. "We've shown our people what courage and determination can achieve. We've built hope, not just walls." Lyra and Ethan knew that future challenges would come, but they were ready. They had courage, intelligence, and the strength of their friendship, and they would face whatever the universe sent their way. For Zalaris, the human hero and the alien princess were more than leaders. They were symbols of resilience, unity, and the extraordinary potential of courage and friendship. And as the stars shone above, Lyra and Ethan stood together, confident that the future would be bright, the city would thrive, and their bond would remain unbroken, forever intertwined by childhood memories, shared battles, and the promise of hope. The twin moons reflected in their eyes as they turned toward the horizon, ready to embrace the adventures, challenges, and triumphs yet to come. Zalaris had survived the war, rebuilt from the ashes, and now flourished under their guidance. And through it all, the princess and her childhood best friend, the hero who had saved her world, stood side by side, a living testament to the strength of human courage, friendship, and ingenuity.